All right, everyone, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
We're good? Okay, cool. Well, first of all, thank you for coming today. I'm Theo. I'm one of the co-founders of Bigger Than Culture and your host, your moderator, your chair, all of the above for the evening. And it's going to be a very great evening. We're going to have a debate, a mini debate, more drinks, more socializing, more networking, all of the above. So stay tuned, stay with us and stay engaged. I'm going to ask you one thing, please put your phones on D&D, silent mode. We don't want any interruptions when our amazing debaters are speaking. Please give them your full attention. So, as I said at the beginning, thank you very much. I know it's a lot to come here on a Friday evening after work in the beating sun. People were sweating when they're walking in, so I get it. And I really, really appreciate you for being here. Before I dive into it, the other people that I want to thank are my two co-founders, Devonte, sat over there. And Kamal sat over there as well. A round of applause for all of them. But more importantly, I want to thank all of you. I want to thank my friends, the man them in the crowd, my sister in the crowd, everyone in here that I've spoke to in the crowd who pushes me, challenges me, that we speak to and we encourage each other, because that's what today is about, right? I used to play a game with myself. I used to try and have 3 great conversations every day. And the idea was that if I can have 3 great conversations every day, even if it was random people, even if it was with a stranger, that will change the way that I think about something and it will add to my life. And I think that is the essence of Bigger Than Culture. This right here is set up to be a great conversation for you all to enjoy and participate in. We're trying to bring some fundamentals back to our generation so that we can start thinking differently, doing things differently and start to lead with impact again. So that's what we're about. That's what Bigger Than Culture is, and you are all bigger than culture as of today. So welcome and big clap for yourselves. Okay, so let's get into it. So this here is the first installment in what we are calling our Hearts and Mind debate. So I'll explain why it's called a Hearts and Mind debate in a little bit. But essentially, as I mentioned, the idea behind Bigger Than Culture is we wanted to create a platform for you all to come in and really push the conversation that we're having. We felt when we're speaking to each other and through conversations that we've had as friends that there were a few things missing in society today, essentially. One of those things being there's a fear of saying things and fear of sharing your thoughts and sharing your opinions, right? Largely because of things like cancel culture, social media, pressure from people, all of the above. There's that fear there for us to express ourselves. And that fear has led to something even more worrying and more troublesome for future generations, which is forgetting actually how to have a great conversation. And I think forgetting how to have a great conversation is something that will cripple us in our growth and the direction that we travel in. So that's what we want to bring back today. So I want you to give the people that are debating today the utmost respect, because what they're doing right now isn't just for this room, it's for the rest of society, it's for us as a whole and our generation as a whole, so that we can start changing the narrative and having open conversations again that really, really bring about great impact. So big round of applause for the debaters tonight. So as I said, my name is Theo Leani, but before we go into the show and the rules of this event, I want to give the debaters a chance to introduce themselves. So we'll start with the 4 team on the right hand side with Angie.
I'm Angie. I am Indian, Sri Lankan, Tamil, and hopefully that will become a bit more relevant as to why I've shared that. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here today. Over to you.
1 2 1 2. I don't know if this is working. It's okay. I'm Leonora, 29, Christian. I am Ghanaian diasporan, born and raised in Hamburg, Germany, and relocated to the UK. So that's a little bit of me.
Perfect. And with the against team, start with Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy, and I'm here to have fun.
Hi, my name is Luke.
Okay, so let's get into it. So tonight's topic in this Hearts and Minds debate, and I'll explain the rules and how it all works, but hopefully it's intuitive and makes sense to you as we go through. So tonight's topic is one that cuts deep. The motion is, this house believes that family values and cultural traditions should determine who we choose to love. Family values and cultural traditions should determine who we choose to love. Right? Some loaded words in there, and we'll unpack all of those together. But what does that mean to us all, right? People coming from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different religions, built on traditions that have lasted generations, and trying to uphold those things and being told constantly that those things are important. That meets a crossroads with then choosing to live your own life in the direction that you want to go in, and what you choose to keep and what you choose to do in your own life. All of that is going to be ripped apart and unpacked by our great debaters here today. And that's the topic, so we'll dive into that a little bit more in more detail. How today is going to work in terms of the structure of the debate. Essentially, we're going to start with opening statements from the for team and the against team. Then you'll have a chance to ask some questions as the audience. You'll come in, ask some clarifying questions specifically to each team. After that, we're going to go into the crossfire rounds, right? So that's going to be back and forth, quick back and forth between the teams, where they make a point, another point is made back. I'll be moderating between them, keeping time and cutting people off as needed. Then we'll go into more audience questions after every round. There'll be 4 of those rounds that will last 6 minutes each. After that, we'll go into the closing statements. Throughout the entire debate, you will all have a chance to vote and share your opinion, right? So one thing I want you to do is make sure that you'll see at some point a slide that will direct you to the Slido app. And if you can just scan that, go on the Slido app, that's where you'll vote and share your opinion. Your opinion is very, very, very important for a couple of reasons. Because as the audience, you are in control of who wins our Heart Award, right? As I mentioned, this is a hearts and minds debate. There's 2 ways to win. If the debaters and the teams capture the audience's hearts and they sway you to a side, they win the Heart Award at the end of the day, right? So keep voting for your teams and we'll keep addressing that as we go on through the rounds. Then the final award is the Mind Award. That will be judged by me solely as the moderator with my rubric, and I will give the Mind Award at the end of the day. So if the Heart Award and the Mind Award goes to the same team, they're the unanimous winner. If it goes to one team and then the other award to another team, then we have a split decision. Make sense? Okay, great. After that, we'll have a little interval followed by a mini debate. You as the audience, whoever's brave enough to come up and do so, will have a chance to come up here and debate the same topic for a shorter round, so we can actually start to unpack this a little bit more. Sound good? Okay, perfect. Well, quick housekeeping rules. Again, as I mentioned, please, phones on silent. If you need anything, there's a toilet at the back right there. We're going to put drinks on pause for right now, but at the interval, there'll be more Prosecco flowing. You can go to the bar and order a drink as you see fit. There should be some more food coming out at that point as well. After the mini debate, please stay behind and have drinks, socialize, network. We've got this space for a while, so it should be a good time. And then the other thing is to make sure that you can use the Q&A chart and Slido as well to just keep that as a chat place. If you have ideas, if you have thoughts as the debate is going on, you can just share your thoughts in there, share your questions in there as you see fit, and you can keep track of that screen as you need to. Are we all ready to get into the debate? Yeah? All right, cool. Let's do it. So we're going to start off the debate. Of the motion, this House believes that family values and cultural traditions should determine who we choose to love, with an opening statement from the for team.
Okay, so for context, I left home at 15. I broke every expectation placed on me for most of my life and spent years without contact with my family. And now I'm a senior practitioner for survivors of sexual violence and exploitation. And every day I witness the consequences of alignment and misalignment with family and values and its direct impact on love. I'm here tonight to argue for this motion, not despite my experience, but because of it. The opposition will reduce this conversation to a discussion on autonomy and control, but my entire career is built on safeguarding people from coercion and trauma and helping people leave harm. And still, I'm here arguing that family and culture should play a role in who we choose to love. What we will show you today is that tradition and trauma are not the same thing. Evolution affords us the opportunity to carry what serves us and refuse what does not, to build infrastructures of love that are conscious, examined, and chosen. And this is what this motion is asking for, and that is the work of love. This motion has consequences. I see them every day in my work and in my own life and in the lives of people who have had to choose between love and survival. So let's break down what we're actually debating. Let's start with the word family. Family is not just blood, not hierarchy, not a unit with the right to approve or disapprove your partner. Family is the first domestic, emotional, and psychological culture any of us ever inhabits. And this includes chosen family, LGBTQ families building new traditions, communities who construct their own kinship structures from scratch, the two-person family building rituals from the ground up, the child given roots by people who adopted them, has tradition, not despite the absence of blood, but because of the presence of foundation. The presence and even the absence of family produces a set of values that should guide who we choose to build our lives with. When we say culture, this is not just ethnicity, not heritage imposed from outside. Culture is simply a set of commitments, the things you care about, the things that generate a sense of belonging. And tradition. Tradition is not just a rigid, unchanging thing, not a controlling template. Tradition is what has proved true and impactful across generations of lived experience, something created to affirm the practice of belonging and being known. And determine might be the most important word in this motion. It does not mean dictate. The motion does not explicitly say fully determined or partially determined. We do not believe that it means absolute control. It means inform, shape, and guide, and it asks if our foundations should be the dominant lens through which we make one of the most consequential decisions of our lives. We ask you to think beyond the post-colonial nuclear concept of family this debate will otherwise default to. That model is not universal, and it's not the only one in the room tonight. The moment we expand our definitions to include chosen families, queer kinship, diasporic identity, people who are estranged from their families, adopted people, this motion stops being about tradition as control and starts being about something far more powerful, the foundations we all carry, whether we chose them or were born into them. The opposition assumes that rejecting tradition makes you neutral, but nobody is neutral. Everybody is shaped by a culture, whether inherited, rejected, or consciously rebuilt. The only question is whether you examine it before choosing who to love. Psychology says, family shapes what love feels like before you ever experience it. It shapes what safety feels like, what chemistry feels like, and without examining that, you don't choose freely. James Baldwin wrote that an invented past cannot be used. It cracks under the pressures of life like clay in drought. The opposition will offer you invented freedom, love untethered from history, from values, from formation. It sounds beautiful. It is in practice a fiction, though, and fiction cracks. Family and cultural tradition, consciously examined, selectively carried, are not restrictions on love. They are the raw material of it. They are how you know which parts of yourself you are bringing to love and which wounds you might be mistaking for desire. For some of us, we question who we build our lives with, and it's never just romantic. It's structural, it's protective, and sometimes it's the difference between safety and danger. I feel strongly about this because I have worked with survivors of abuse who made romantic choices that felt like freedom, but turned out to be repetition and harm. They chose completely autonomously, completely led by feeling, and found themselves in the same patterns they grew up with. Everyone chooses love from within a culture, even if it's one they've built themselves. And family and cultural tradition, examined, chosen, consciously carried, is what determines whether love produces something that actually lasts or burns out. The opposition will tell you that love should be free, and we agree. But freedom without foundation is not liberation, it's chaos. The idea that we should choose who we love in complete isolation, answerable only to feeling, untethered from community and values, is not a universal human truth. It's only 200 years old, it's very recent, very Western, very fragile, and love is not diminished by having roots. The idea that love should be chosen in isolation is not liberation. It's one of the loneliest inventions we've ever made, and in the part of you that knows what it truly means to belong, you already know this. We ask you to think beyond the idea that partnerships should be organised around intrinsically temporary things like feeling and chemistry, and to honestly consider what is actually necessary for love to endure. We're not here to coerce you, we're simply asking you to trust what you already know. We thank you for your access to your hearts and your minds, and hope you leave this room enriched. We ask you to vote for this motion.
Okay, well, I guess over to the against team for your opening statement. And is it fiction? Let's go.
Period.
A lot of assumptions made about what I'm going to talk about tonight. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 in the Bible says that love is patient. Love is kind and does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude, does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things.
Amen.
What is love? What is love to you? And should who we choose to love be determined and decided ultimately, because determined means to be the deciding factor in something, right? So should this be decided by the values of our families and cultural traditions? To start exploring this topic, we first need to understand the two types of culture. Individualist cultures, which tend to be Western cultures, European cultures, they tend to prioritize personal independence, autonomy, and self-fulfillment. Whereas collectivist cultures, which tend to be African, South Asian, East Asian. Prioritize the needs, goals, and harmony of a group, such as a family in our case, over individual needs. And what's interesting about people from collectivist cultures is that they tend to have higher allocentrism. Allocentrism is a measure of how much a person defines their happiness and identity based on the happiness and values and opinions of their family. So now you can kind of see how the debate addresses this tension, right, of the fact that so many of us here live and have grown up in an individualist UK culture and society, while so many of us come from collectivist backgrounds and communities. So we have to navigate sort of that collectivist mindset of, you know, one for all, whilst trying to preserve our personal autonomy and freedoms. And what's another interesting thing about this, right, is that a 2015 study was done on the effects of collectivism on relationship passion. They did 2 studies. The first study suggested that parental influence inhibited passion within a relationship, so it reduced it. The second study suggested that family allocentrism may enhance it. So that alignment with your family, remember, that alignment of your happiness is their happiness, and they're happy if you're happy, that enhances the passion within the relationship. So what conclusion can we draw from this? It's not about meddling parents, getting involved, you know, forcing their values onto whatever you're trying to do in your relationship and just killing the vibe, right? Because that kills love. It's about knowing that your family supports who you choose to love. It's about knowing that they love who you've chosen to love, believe in them the way that you've chosen to believe in them, right? Because that is what creates such a beautiful family atmosphere when 2 people come together. But what about love within the family? So a charity called Just Like Us found in a 2023 survey of 3,500 LGBTQ young people that 46%, half, were no longer in contact with one or more of their family members because of who they chose to be, who they are. How would you all feel not having contact with your closest family members because of who you are? And this is the thing that we need to remember about culture and family traditions and values, is that they can perpetuate negative stereotypes and behaviors that break families apart if we choose to blindly let them determine who we choose to love. They perpetuate, and they're incredibly important, but not at the expense of destroying families and creating trauma. And what about social as well, right? Because we have friends and we love them too. Another study done in 2024 called Variety is the Spice of Life surveyed 25,000 adults across 10,000 English neighborhoods. And they found something interesting. They found that social cohesion and life satisfaction peaked when about half of a person's friends were different in age, race, income, or education to themselves. So where does that increase in satisfaction come from? Why is that? Well, diversity encourages different ways of thinking. You know, different ways of approaching problems, different perspectives on life. And all of this fuels personal growth.
Time to close out the statement.
All right. What's our conclusion then? Tradition and culture should be guiding and directional only, but not determining. Respecting culture should not have to mean surrendering your personal autonomy. And that's why this house is against the motion and believes culture and tradition should not determine who we choose to love. This house chooses love, and this house hopes that you choose love too.
Okay, so very, very heated opening statements. With that, I think we're going to give the audience a chance to ask 2 to 3 questions. So Kamal's going to be coming around.
Okay, so I have a question for the 14. So what happens when your family's in a cult, when they're uneducated, And I think like for like a lot of our parents, they have might have like Asian backgrounds, African backgrounds, Caribbean backgrounds. You're not going to trust your parents to choose your partner. Let's be honest with ourselves. Naturally, our morals and our rationality is going to let us guide us to help us choose our lover, our partner, our future husband or wife. But we need to understand as well, at the end of the day, you love your parents and you trust their guidance, but everyone can fail you. So at what level are you going to allow them to choose your future partner and let that guide you? I don't think.
So I think we're going to cut the question there. You ready to answer it?
Okay, so your question is about at what point you're going to let them to choose. This motion is not saying whatever our parents say we should do. So you mentioned Asians and African backgrounds. Love and marriage has never just been about two people getting together. It's never just been about two unions. It has always been about families joining together, communities, unities, histories. Even royals have gone extent to marrying their own cousins just to protect that family tradition. Now, as well as I understand, like there's always that negative connotation in regards to like cults and forced marriages and so on. We are not encouraging anyone to fall in love or be in a relationship with someone that they don't want to. However, what we're trying to push for is the fact that we are not born as blank slates. We are a product of our environment, our communities, our upbringing. So sociologist Pierre Bourdieu argues that we are not our individual people just because we are. We are a product of where we came from how we speak to even sometimes how we talk. Is all a testament and all comes from our environment. So naturally,
just to stop that answer there. So it sounds like the response is we're not meant to follow blindly. It's influencing who we are. So now we will move on to one more question from the audience before we go into the next round.
What about religion?
Who's the question for?
Well, for both actually, because I think religion has become a very important aspect, if not dominating decision making for who we are to marry, possibly. I don't know. I come from quite an open, family that's very open to all cultures and all religions, but there may be other cultures that will not be open to people from
We'll give this question to the against team.
Yeah.
I think religion is an incredibly important part of a person's identity if they choose to identify and believe in said religion. And I think it should absolutely play a part in who you choose to love. But do I think that means that we should not choose a potential partner based on the fact that they have a different religion to us? Absolutely not. Because when you love someone, you choose to accept all of them. And that means compromise, that means meeting each other halfway, that means learning about them, embracing what makes them who they are, and that's going to be their religion too, right? And through that, and what's the most beautiful thing about that is that you end up creating your own sort of unique little culture either within your relationship or family as well, and that gets passed down to your children too, making them more well-rounded and open human beings when they grow up.
Super helpful. Okay, thank you for the clarifying question. So to summarize the opening statements, I'm not going to do a big summary. I think they're all very articulate and clear in the opening statements, and it's a great start to what I think is going to be a very, very spicy debate. But I just want to ask two questions that I picked up. Open-ended questions, not to answer, just to say out loud. I think one thing that I picked up from the 4 team was the question of, is it fiction, right? Is it idealistic to not ground love in family values and cultural traditions? And I think that's a very, very important question for us all to consider. And a question that I picked up from the against team is, are we being blind if we just follow family values and cultural traditions without anything else? And I think both of those questions for both teams are things for us to consider and for the audience to consider throughout the rest of this debate. So with that, now let's get into the fun part. So right now we're going to get into the quick the crossfire rounds. 4 rounds, 6 minutes each, back and forth, one statement from each team, 1 minute. Each team gets a minute. You'll see how it goes. You'll feel the vibe from this. And I will be cutting teams off at the minute mark. As you've seen, I'm happy to be rude and we'll go through that because time is of the essence. So without further ado, we're going to kickstart the first round with the 4 team.
Thank you. I love the fact that you started your motion with a Bible quote, love is blind, love is beautiful. I also want to quote Jesus. In 2 Corinthians 6:14, it says, do not be equally yoked with non-believers. This is not about superiority. This is not about thinking you're better than everybody else. But like you said, as a Christian, but unfortunately, we do not serve a but God. And of course, that doesn't mean we should disrespect any other religion. We should always have that respect and that just that respect full stop. But when it comes down to love and marriage is further deeper than that. So modern culture tells us to follow our hearts. But when you look at divorce statistics, family breakdowns, it does not come from a lack of love. It stems from fundamentally different values. Different values being religion. Different values being raising your children, money, finances, and gender obligations. Love cannot answer those. Shared values can.
And how would you respond to that against him?
So I think my first thing is, if we're going to do the religion thing, and you said like your God is not a but God, I think my God is a progressive God, and my God is a God that sees what's in people's hearts. And there's so many things in the Bible that are tradition and that are culture, like child marriage and a woman being raped, having to marry her oppressor. And so I feel like if we're going to be so strict on keeping religion stagnant, then there's too many things that I can bring up that we shouldn't be talking about today. And so I just want to like make it very clear as well, because I feel like there isn't clarity right now on what you're debating. We do agree that tradition and culture is important, and we do agree that it should be considered. What we are saying is it should not be the final say.
Okay, so I think that's a very important point. My God, your God, God, all the above. So, literally, on that point, what are we debating?
Okay, sorry, 1 second.
No worries. As Angie is just getting her...
There you go.
Okay.
Finish your sentence.
So I'm trying to draw away from just always talking about religion and faith and so on, because obviously that is a huge part of things. But there's some things that are just sociology and philosophy. So, for example, Aristotle teaches that flourish in life comes not from following every single desire, but from practicing wisdom. So freedom is not just simply asking, what do I want? I have the freedom to love anybody. Yes, you have the freedom to do anything, but it's not everything that serves you. It's not everything that is right for you. So for instance, you've mentioned family and what about, you have that discernment to decide whether or not you want to make that sacrifice. But within that sacrifice, that still comes with consequences that you have to deal with. Just like you mentioned, LGBTQ have been forced to stay away from their family, or the family have disowned them. That is a consequence and a sacrifice. That's not saying that they're not right to love whoever they love. But in this instance, is where you need to sort of put wisdom into it. And by the way, I'm not looking at LGBTQ. I'm talking about in general, like your heterosexual, let's say, relationship. Angie would tap more into like the LGBT with her expertise. But you have to understand with certain decision and sacrifice will come ultimately. It's about whether you have the right wisdom to decipher if you're making the right choice for yourself.
Okay. On that point, let's go over to the against team.
Why is love the opposite of wisdom to you? I don't understand. Like for me, when we are speaking about coming from a place of love, we understand the intention of who we are as people, right? Because as we said when we were discussing the love definition, it didn't say anything about love being determined by religion or love being determined by family expectations or love being determined by culture or any of that. It talks about what you believe in your heart and how you choose to respond and interact with other people. And so when we're focusing on culture itself, we're not saying don't think. We're not saying don't be practical. We're not saying don't be wise. We're literally saying do all of that, and at the end of the day, make sure you follow your heart.
Okay, and the 4 team, this is your last round, or last segment of this round, so please go.
We are saying that love and values and the foundations that are ultimately made up of like the things that you learn through tradition and culture make up like your foundation, and they are inextricably linked with love.
Yes.
So it's not the opposite of it. We are agreeing with you that those things are intertwined, but I feel like your argument is essentially treating love as an isolated thing, and that we're saying that it's kind of like seeing love as love is the ignition, and it's kind of treating it as the whole mechanism, whereas we're saying that family values and culture are kind of like the engine and makes up the rest of the vehicle, and you can't have one without the other. We are saying the same thing, but we're arguing like for the importance of that foundation, because you can't just drive with love. You have to have the entire system working for there to be like prosperity and romance.
Okay, and then to close out, against you.
We did not say. Okay, so I'm going to say it again, right? We agree with everything you, to a point where I'm so confused right now. Everything you said is everything we're arguing, right? And our only point is, we're not saying that you should use love to determine because you're not using family traditions to determine. That's not our point. Our whole point is everything is important because you shouldn't only focus on tradition if it contradicts your love.
Can I say, what do you mean by everything is important?
Tradition, culture, identity.
So you're for the argument?
No, because
This is what I'm getting from you as well.
Yeah,
That's from our side.
Because that's why we defined the word determine.
What was your definition of determined? I can't remember. Sorry.
Determine means to decide with certainty, to be the deciding factor that dictates the outcome.
We don't agree that it means dictate.
Well, okay, on that point, I think there's a big clarification to be made. Typically, this question is directed to the A team, but I'd actually like this question directed to the against team on this one. So the audience, you've got a chance to ask a question before you vote and slide on who you think won this round specifically. It'll keep updating as it goes along. So anyone in the audience has a clarifying question, raise your hands and you'll get the mic. We've got one clarifying question from the audience, and then we'll go into voting before we dive into the next round. There's a question right there in the middle.
Hi, I think you all done a great job so far. I just like to clarify, if we change the word love to partnership, straight marriage, do you have the same for or against? Because I think in some instances, love isn't contingent on marital partnership and vice versa. So I'd like to have greater clarification on this, on that point, possibly.
Who wants to take that?
Stop exposing us, sis. We're coming. But yes, we do agree, and it was one of the things that we were going to like bring up, that we aren't focusing on love only in relationship, because we want to focus on love platonically and what that means with anyone being your neighbor and people that you're going to cut off or not love or not respect.
On that point, I'm going to interject. I'm going to focus on love being in a partnership, a marriage solely, because then there's a million different types of love, right? So let's focus on love with the people that you're going to build a life with, the person that you're choosing to build a life with. Or if you do more like multiple people relationships, the 2-3 people you're going to build a house with, completely up to you. But let's focus on that specifically. And with that, 4 teams, do you have an answer to that? Or are you happy to move on to the next round? Happy to move on?
No.
Okay, so on that note, what happens now, essentially after every round, you, the audience, get a chance to vote and let us know who you think won that particular round or where you're swaying, right? So this is for the Heart Award specifically. You get a chance to vote for that. So we're going to give you 30 seconds. There's a QR code on the screen. You can scan that QR code. Let us know where you are right now. Again, keep asking questions on the board, but what we're going to reveal right now is who you, the audience, think is winning this first round. So, Devontae, clarify. Is that fifth? It looks like against, just edging it. Okay. All right. So despite the apparent lack of clarity against team, it seems like you're edging it right now. So yeah, let's dive into it. So with this round, we're going to kickstart the second debate round with the against team's opening point. So who wants to start?
I think earlier you mentioned that royal families will go to the extent of marrying their own cousins to preserve culture and traditions. And I found it shocking that was your point, because I guess to me, that proves that not all culture and traditions is right, and that not all culture and traditions should be passed down and should be good. And
I think it's a great place to leave it. It's a great question. So how would you respond to that for team?
So I would say that there's a difference between tradition and trauma, and we change. Like, tradition is a chance for us to break cycles of trauma. That's an example of a family that has not broken through refinement or change. They've maintained it through preservation that's actually preserving trauma, not tradition. So, like, yes, that's an example of people, like, maintaining something and holding on to something, but they've not refined it. But I think tradition gives us that chance to change. They just didn't take that chance. I think that's an example of harm that's sustained rather than why tradition is a negative thing. It presents differently in different families. Yeah.
So you've got a little bit more time. Do you have any examples of where it's positive? Because yeah,
absolutely. So for example, like, I was born into a family with a lot of trauma. I've decided to break those generational trauma cycles by making different choices. I had a chance to refine what tradition now looks like in me as an individual. The tradition I pass on will look different. Tradition is meant to evolve. It's not static. It doesn't stay stagnant. It's meant to change, and that's the beauty of being able to have choice and autonomy, which is what we
how
are
would you
arguing
respond to that?
Thank you for proving our point. Traditions are meant to change, and traditions are meant to grow, and people should be loving each other, and multicultural relationships should be happening, and interfaith marriages should be happening, so that people can redefine what culture means to them, and so that people can redefine what traditions mean to them, so that they can grow, because just because something happened 200 years ago doesn't mean we need to keep doing it now.
Do you want to respond?
Let's go.
Okay, sorry, could you repeat your last line? Just the final thing that you said.
Just because something was happening 200 years ago doesn't mean it needs to repeat now.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said about the fact that it evolves and it changes, which means that it can change into a positive thing that influences who you choose to love.
So against the motion?
No, for the motion.
In what way?
As in, if something can change in a way that benefits you and nourishes you and changes the conditions of your life and actually advocates for you and creates a foundation from which you can draw to have a positive romantic relationship.
Guess to help clarify, I guess the question is, if the cultural tradition changes because you think it needs to improve, is it still the cultural tradition that you had that's determining who you choose to love?
Yeah, because I think it's not about preserving something exactly as it was 200 years ago. It's about refining something that, like, adapts to who you are as a person, the society that you live in.
Can I ask you why? Why would you make that refinement? What is the motivation behind that?
Because nothing is supposed to stay the same. Like, you are different to a person a generation back before you. You've had a different life, so you're going to be a different person. And it's the refinement that gives us the agility and the flexibility to adjust our value systems, which then should inform, like, who we love.
Thank you.
Question. So, how would you define culture?
I'm trying to understand your definition of why it is against.
Well, could you define culture?
Yeah. So, culture is a set of beliefs, rituals, and customs that are passed down through generations within a community or society. And family values are a set of more qualities, ways of thinking that are passed down within a family that kind of help shape who people are within the family, who your children are and who they become. And I think one thing that I think needs to be clarified as well is sort of traditions and determining, right? Because that word determining is really important, because it kind of assigns the weight that the traditions and family values play into that decision that we're making and who we choose to love. So while I appreciate you're saying that these things evolve and they change as we learn more, etc., the idea is that actually, your family values and your traditions as they are, how do they factor into who you choose to love? And if you're saying that actually, no, I'm choosing not to go that way and go a different way, is that actually you following the tradition in the first place? And I don't think it is.
I guess we'll end this round with that question. Is that you following the tradition? And if so, why?
I think that it's about establishing your values, which happens by either going with what was or refining it into something new. I think it's about the actual change that creates tradition, and we are agreeing that it's a changeable thing and that it's constantly in motion. And so, yeah, that would be my answer.
I guess one of their main questions is that why do you need to change it if your family values and cultural traditions
That is the
are
tradition.
determining it, and once you change it, is it the same family values and cultural traditions that are determining it, or not? The moment of changing it, does it then mean that it needs to change, so it shouldn't determine it because it had to change? And that I assume that's what their question is.
Okay, so I would say that whether you, my point is that whether you are agreeing with it or rejecting the culture, you are still turning to that value system to decide who you are and what you are doing. The texture of your foundation changes whether you decide to go along with it or actually rebel against it. At the end of the day, the value system and your traditions are still at the center of your decision making.
I think that's a very important point. If it is something that you look to decide it as a standard, whether it's good or not, then it is something that is therefore determinate or important enough for you to look at as a metric. So we're going to end that round there. And again, we're going to go to the audience for one, maybe two more clarifying questions. Let's see how much time we have. So audience, clarifying questions. We have one right there, second right at the front.
Just listening to the both of you, and I'm starting to see you sort of talking past each other a bit. And my question to you all is whether you received that family values, traditions, and culture is an external thing, like a rule book, versus whether it's an internal thing. And the reason why I think that is differentiating is because I think the foresight is touching upon points of identity, right? So whether you want to accept or reject, your family values, cultures, and traditions influence who you are as a person. Yeah. It's also going to influence what you need from the person who you choose to love. And so if you don't know yourself and you don't understand what about your tradition, family values, and culture impacts who you are as a person, how can you properly steward yourself to understand who you choose to love?
And who's that for? Who's the question for? The 4 team?
Anyone who thinks they have an answer to that.
I think that's a great question, because that is where I'm coming at it from, in that I believe these things, as mentioned in the topic, external. Who you are is always going to play a part in who you choose to love. We don't have a choice in that. Psychology says that. We don't have a choice. What we see growing up, who our role models are, the examples of love that we have in our earliest years play a massive part in who we choose to love, the relationships we have further down the line, perpetuating abuse even in some cases as well. We don't have, unless we make a conscious decision to change that, we don't have a lot of control over that, right? And that's why I feel that unless in terms of sort of external family values, external cultural traditions, they should not determine who we choose to love. By default, who we are is going to play a part. That's not what at least for us, that's not what we're arguing here. What we're arguing is those external those external pressures to conform with cultural traditions playing a part in who we choose to love.
Okay, and anything you want to add, or?
I don't think they're separate things. I think that, of course, you have your internal self, but that's so deeply guided and shaped by the things that happen to you, including like the things that affect you from your external forces. Like I'd say that when I work with people with fractured foundations, people aren't like coming undone because they haven't got enough like kind of cultural grounding. They usually are coming undone because they don't have enough. For whatever reason, they weren't nourished, they weren't taken care of. And I'd say that love is embedded into our earliest like domestic and emotional cultures, like in our attachment styles, our tolerance for abandonment, what normal feels like, what safe feels like. It's all enmeshed. I don't understand how you could separate the two. So I'd say, yes, you have your interior self, but also external factors are going to shape, how you experience love.
Thank you. So let's look at the votes and see. If you haven't voted yet, please update your votes now. You've got 10 seconds, so no point chit-chatting because we're going to look at the screen. The 4 team are now in the lead. So that's a big shift in round 2. Very, very interesting. So with that, let's dive into the 3rd round. So please, everyone, give your attention back to the debaters. 4 team, please, are you ready with your opening statement?
Cool. So we want to start off with the fact that community is protection. As you have sometimes mentioned, when people stray away from their family values and tradition, that may mean isolation. In domestic abuse and violence, not saying that even if you are within a family traditional marriage or whatever, that cannot happen. But just looking at domestic abuse, it requires isolation, and that is something that's consistent across every single research. So having a strong family and communities, that's more than just preserve tradition. It's about accountability, it's about support, it's about the village that we so often seek. So in regards to that as well, I want to also tap onto the fact that we are rooted people, just like your question answered. We naturally seek belonging. So even when, let's say, when someone strays away from their home, they still find a community, whether it's that LGBT or the marginalized people, wherever they are. Even adopted children, 1 in 4, go out and seek out their biological family, despite not even having known them from birth, because they still have that human DNA to find where they belong to, who they belong to, or want to understand their family traditions and values.
Great points. So community as protection, right? It takes a village to raise a child, and what is that village if not built on family values and cultural traditions? I think that's a great point. So against team, how would you respond to that?
I'm a little bit confused, if I'm being honest, because earlier we spoke and we defined that we're talking about love in the context of partnerships and relationships, no?
Correct.
But our argument has always been that love is not enough. Love may start a relationship, attraction may start a relationship, but fundamentally, in order for a relationship to survive, you have to start asking these serious questions. How would our family, what will our children be raised as? What religion do we follow? What tradition do we follow? How do we manage conflict? Love cannot answer those questions, sorry. Shared values can. Love is an emotion, but love is also a decision that you have to make, because this is where I feel like your points in statistics.
Just quickly, this is still your time, by the way.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
if you want to finish it.
And I think that's, again, with love, love is what helps motivate you to find that, even when you don't have initially those same values, when things are misaligned. You know, there's no two people, doesn't matter how aligned you are on culture, or if you come from exactly the same background, are going to think the exact same things and always agree on everything. It's love that gets you through those hurdles. It's love that helps create that compromise, that understanding, that makes you show affection instead of being upset because you haven't aligned on something.
With that point, love is what gets you through. I'll ask you to clarify your point around community, family, the village, and is it more practical to build love in that way, or will love in itself get you through it? Could you dive into that point a little bit more?
So what we're saying is that romantic choices they can be emotionally costly. They also are materially and physically dangerous for some people, in which case you would want the protective factors of like a family, whether that's your blood related family or your chosen family. For like many marginalized people, their chosen family is the reason they get to survive. And so when they're making choices like in love, which can be rooted from a chemical reaction, like your nervous system thinks that you're experiencing love, but you're actually in danger. You want people to be able to vet that experience and be your kind of like foundation and your soundboard to make sure you're making positive choices. That's the importance of the kind of concept of the village, is where we're coming from.
Okay, it looks like Ami's ready, so.
I love it. Romantic choices can be deadly. So I would like to say romantic choices can be revelation, right? So I'm Sierra Leonean. We come from a very liberal, like religious background of country. So I was raised as a Muslim, and then I'm now dating someone who is very, very, very strictly Christian, like not even liberal at all. And he knows I'm Muslim. And when it came to dating, it was something for both of us to consider. And now through that journey, I am getting into Christianity, right? And so for us, when you're talking about these choices can be deadly, I feel the complete opposite, because we're not saying that you have to delete traditions. We're not saying you have to delete cultures. We're saying that choosing who you love is part of that. And through that, there can be so much growth, expression, and new traditions and new cultures that come from it.
And just to add on to that, Ami, because fantastic points, I think it's also about the fact that, again, your village should not determine who you choose to love. Where you're from, those people around you, absolutely you need that sounding board to make sure, hey, like there's some things there that I'm seeing, you know, that I don't think you need to look out for. There's some red flags there. Absolutely. Friends, family, for sure.
With that.
And that was actually beautiful. I mean, did you say that you grew up Muslim and now
I was raised Muslim.
your current partner, you're now swaying or have...
Oh, I won't use the word sway. I don't like that word.
So you're not swaying.
I'm open
You're
to
open.
becoming more understanding
Which, again,
of a
I
religion.
believe
Yeah.
Supports our point about shared values. Since you've now started opening yourself up to Christianity, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so can you please just repeat what you said in regards to...
Reminder, this is still the 14th time, so
just
use
that
it
last
wisely.
little bit.
So just to clarify, we both had separate values, but because we love each other, we've come together to see how those values can now complement each other and move forward for what we want to build, because we're not strict on past traditions, but going forward with cultural identity and traditions of our own.
So you're saying you negotiated your values because a value system is central to how you make decisions about love?
But doesn't determine it.
But determine being inform, shape, guide.
No, determine being...
That's not what determine means.
Let me read it again.
That's not what determine means.
Determine means to decide with certainty, to be the deciding factor that dictates an outcome.
One of the things that really just stood out about me is when you finished it saying, ever since then, you've become, or you mentioned something about being a Christian or tapping into Christian idea, which again supports that regardless, the foundation will sort of be built on a unified value.
A new unified value, because we didn't allow it. If we allowed it to determine, we would have said, you're one thing, I'm one thing, we're not aligned. But the point is, we're allowing it to advise. And so we're saying that we can come together and see what can happen going forward, because we are a new generation and we are open rather than allowing things to dictate.
Okay, so I really love that round, by the way. So I'm going to give you each a chance, 30 seconds each, just to clarify your main point, no back and forth, before we go to audience questions.
As much as I respect that determine can in some contexts mean control for some people, but if you just take that extreme definition and you don't also accept that it can mean inform, guide and shape, then you're only focusing on those extreme situations of coercion and control and like dictating. Whereas I think that sometimes being determined and shaped and guided is one of the things can be a protective saving factor. So I think to only focus on that definition is to exclude so many other people's experiences is not the most inclusive definition of determine.
But
okay, wait, just so they're clarifying that your argument is not really being inclusive of other forms of those things determining who you choose to love. So would you like to clarify your point?
Absolutely. That's not how definitions work. There is no inclusive, the word means what the word means, right?
I looked up the definition, I have it written down.
Okay, against the clarifying point, let's go.
I got it too. So determine means to make a conclusive decision. So if we're talking about family values and traditions, you're using those to make a conclusive decision on who you choose to love, and that's what we're against. You mentioned the village. They should not be making a conclusive decision, or the values of the village should not be making a conclusive decision on who you choose to love.
The people internal to the relationship should.
For clarifying that. I think that's a big clarification on both sides, super clear. Let's go to the audience questions before we go to the vote for round 3. There's a lot of hands up. Let's go to the two on the right hand side. I see Tommy and the brother behind Tommy. So
yeah, my question is for the against team. Do you think that love is a choice?
I believe the beginning of love isn't a choice, right? I believe the initial connection, the attraction, I believe it shouldn't be a choice. However, right, I believe that we choose to show up and we choose to participate and we choose to respect and be kind. And so, yes, I do believe that there is choice within love.
Okay, and we'll end it there. There was another question behind Tommy. Just one more. There's one more question behind Tommy.
Yeah, Matt's working. So I can't lie, you know the question, tonight's motion, it kind of it pushes both arguments. And I think it's a fantastic question. Because in relation to like determine is like a factual thing, or what's the concluding factor?
Sorry to cut you off. Clarifying questions only.
In terms of cultural traditions, it's like that those can develop over time. So that's where the two arguments kind of collide.
So who's your question for me?
Ready? The internet ready?
Sure. Your question for me?
So it's like I'm not.
I'm sorry, I'm just playing my role. Okay. To answer that, we've got a question at the front. So while the mic comes to the front, to answer that question, cultural traditions definitely should it pushes both sides. I think that's the point of the motion, right? Both sides are meant to have a chance. In this, it's not meant to be one-sided specifically. My view on cultural traditions is actually that it is like, you look at it like a blade, right? Or like a wheel. Over time, it will evolve, but ultimately a wheel is a wheel, and it's meant to drive you forward. You might go from a wooden wheel to a wheel made out of rubber and tire, but ultimately it's meant to wheel things forward, right? So the function of it is the same. Everything around it might change, but that's the same with cultural traditions and family values for me. So make of that what you will, but I look at it as a wheel. There we go. There we go. Go on, one more question.
My question's for the full team. At what point do we challenge or break the negative family or cultural like traditions in a relationship moving forward? If we're just going to stick with people from our own cultures or say similar family values.
So our definition of culture is not just to do with race or like the group of people that you are from on a like physical heritage level. So we're kind of, does that answer like your question? Like it's kind of beyond just that. So but have I got time to? Okay. So in the Bible, Isaiah 54:17 says, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their righteousness is from me, says the Lord." So the Lord says that righteousness is your heritage, and that transcends culture. So I think that when we're having conversations about like culturally in terms of what group of people we're coming from, I think that's almost a kind of inferior inheritance to focus on, regardless of your faith. I think that transcends it. I think that is the more important thing.
Okay, super helpful. So let's get into the polling. Again, 10 seconds, no point talking. We always do this, no point talking. Let's just all remain calm and get into the polling, and then we'll look at the vote. So you've got 10 seconds. I can do a countdown if you want me to do a countdown. But otherwise, yeah, let's dive into it. So we're going into the final round, by the way. So the fourth round is the final round before the closing statements. So yeah, where are we right now? At the end of the third round, it looks like we still have the 4 team in the lead by a slightly greater margin. Wait, it's updating. Okay, yep, we still have the 4 team in the lead by a slightly greater margin. So we're now going into the fourth and final round. So at the front, I see chit-chatting at the front. Okay, so let's get back into it. So against team, are you ready for your final point of the round?
We'll see what they say. Yeah.
So I guess just a question, because you've given like your definition of culture being a bit different, I guess, to what the standard would be. So then how would you define family traditions?
Remember, any question you ask, do your time.
I know.
How would we define family tradition? So that would be anything that's like a set of kind of things that are passed down but can evolve. Like it can be something that affirms a sense of belonging and identity, and that can adapt and change.
Okay, but if it's a family tradition, how is it going to adapt and change? Just quickly.
Because through refinement, like environment, times, like generations changing, it has to adapt. We can't have the same traditions that we had 200 years ago, unmoved, fixed.
There was a lady here that asked a great question, right? And she clarified sort of that external and internal sort of valuation on values and cultures and traditions. And I think it's a bit strange that you're kind of bleeding both together and sort of saying like, yeah, family traditions, they change, but that's your internal tradition, not family traditions, because if you were continuing the family tradition, you would be continuing to do what your family does. If your family eats chicken every Sunday, and you decide to change that to, I don't know, because everyone decides to go vegan because you want to go vegan, you're not continuing the family tradition anymore. Yeah, you're eating on a Sunday, but the family tradition is to eat chicken.
But do you not think that people who don't have a relationship with their blood family or are adopted or estranged from their family have the right to still have traditions of their own? Or is it only people who are
they can
in
have
a long
traditions
lineage
of their own, but we are just arguing that the traditions that already are within their family shouldn't determine who they love. We want them to have traditions of their own. We want them to evolve and do that through choosing to love anyone.
Okay, so again, 4 team.
I don't understand what I'm responding to.
You can respond. You can.
So we're saying, should foundations be the dominant lens through which you make romantic choices? Your foundations are not attached to whether it's been in your family for 200 years or for 1 year, because we're not like taking into consideration someone who has been separated from like their bloodline. Essentially, those people are still entitled to have a sense of like foundation, and then that will be like a baseline from which they make all their choices. Like, to separate those two things just doesn't make sense to me. I just don't understand that perspective.
It's not about separating the two. I think it's about, it's not about separating the two. I think it's about understanding that while they're not separate, right? One does affect the other. You get one from the other. And I appreciate what you're saying as well. Like, there are people that don't have families as well, and estranged from their families, so they have to create their own cultures as well. But then I think even that within themselves, if their family culture could then be their immediate environment, their friends, if they're in their immediate environment, who's around them, should that determine who they choose to love, the culture that they get from the people around them? No, that's not what it should be either, right? Like, it's not about separating the two. It's just about establishing that traditions are something that if it is really a tradition, you're trying to keep it the same. Your internal values are what we're saying you should follow, because that's what love is.
Where do your internal values come from?
Took the words out of my mouth. Okay. Okay.
It's a question to you.
Your internal values will of course come from originally your family traditions, of course, right? But at some point you make them your own, and your family may still have their traditions or their take on what's happening, right? And at that point at which you make it the traditions your own, we're saying you need to follow your heart and make the decision that's best for you, that you feel is best for you, right? We understand they're all together, but there is a point where you take the tradition, you make it your own, and then it's yours.
I would say that you're not born with, so when you're born, you have autonomy, but you're not born with the perfect idea of autonomy. Your autonomy is affected. Like, everyone in this room has autonomy, but all of us make different choices. There might be people in this room that make terrible choices, and there might be people who make more positive ones. And the quality of your autonomy is affected by the things that affect, like, your values and your foundations. And that's what I'm saying, is that whether they're separate or whether they're the same thing, you're saying at some point you have to make a decision for yourself. Absolutely, but where does the decision making come from? What informs the decision making? What nourishes your foundations to lead you to make a decision? I feel like you're separating it.
Yeah, so I guess it's a good question that I'd like, I'd like to actually hear about. Are those decisions made by family values and cultural traditions? Are they?
No, because there's so much more to the decisions that you make than just your foundations, right? Like, we go to school, we get educated, we consume content, we talk to other people, we take in other perspectives. There's so much more outside of your family traditions.
Great point, and thank you for clarifying that, actually. And then my next question is, are those things as important as the family values and cultural traditions?
And I think this is where my point comes back to. It's up to you, right? It's up to you, and that is what it should be about. And that is what love is. It's about you seeing the person. And to me, love is a thing that makes it's a motive, it's a verb, it's something that you do. It makes you want to do something, right? So for me, it's just about, if you see that person, you talk to that person, you develop feelings for that person, and you think, you know what, my family does X, says X, thinks Y, but I see this person and, you know, I want to still be with that. But you do that. You absolutely should do that. That is love.
Thank you for the answer, Luke. And before we close out the fourth and final round, for team, how would you respond to that point specifically? And I guess to ask a question, is that practical?
To sort of answer, I don't want to repeat myself in sort of saying love is not enough. I know that would confuse me. Whereas my notes. I actually wanted to, I don't want to repeat my notion about that love is not enough, because we already have argued that. what I actually want to talk about is, again, the foundational values, because that's what our main point is. Love cannot survive on love alone. It's an emotion. It's about the foundations. It's about upon what that love, that marriage is built upon. So, for instance, King Solomon is remembered as one of the wisest king in scripture. I feel like one thing all the panel has used is biblical evidence or tapped on religion, whether it's Christianity or Muslim. And it's one of those things where Kings 11 tells us that his marriage to foreign wives led him away from the worship of God as to influence him to follow other gods. The lesson here, again, is not about ethnicity or race. It's about foundational values. So I feel like even extraordinary wisdom can be compromised when we ignore the very principles we deem and know to be important.
And with that, we will end the fourth and final round. Great statement. I think that's a great closing statement to argue the point, and it's also a great clarifying statement from the against team arguing their points. You want to respond to it? You'll get a chance. So after this round of audience questions, we're going to take two questions. I want one question for the for team, one question for the against team. Then we're going to go into the poll specifically for the fourth and final round. And then after this, the teams will do their closing statements. So any questions? Okay, there's one. There's 1, 2, 3. What you can choose. There's one right here.
Hi, for the opposition, so just to clarify, because I feel like the 14 did a good job clarifying the family, how family tradition can change. Does the opposition believe that cultural traditions don't change and they're stagnant?
It's not that cultural traditions don't change, right? Of course they do. But the point is, and the question that came from the lady over here, and talking to them as well helped me understand, is that it's something that becomes internal and is a part of your identity, which is what they're saying drives the decisions that you make, I believe, right? But there is a point where you make that your own, right? Where because you've made it a part of your identity, you're now making your own decisions based on that. And if you choose to evolve that and change it, right, that's kind of separate to like what your family is still doing, right? They may not change with you, right? You've chosen to move ahead and be progressive and adapt it to do what suits you best. But if your family is doing the same thing, that's the family tradition, and you've chosen to follow your heart, your own values, and create your own new tradition, you know? And that's the beauty of love, allowing it to choose and you know, not allowing it to be defined by just the family and the culture tradition, and going with what you want to do. Appreciate it.
Okay, there was a question right next over here. Go for it.
I was going to ask you guys, do you think it's selfish to put the love that you have for your partner over the love that you have for your family and your village?
I think that's a great question. There's a scripture in the Bible where it says that a man will leave his father and his mother and, well, go with his wife, right? At that point, I believe that is your family. And absolutely, as much as they are always going to be your parents, you can't let them come between your family. That's your family. That's who you've chosen. That's your person now. And the idea is that, mum, pops, this is my person. And if it's healthy, you set that boundary, that respect is there, and they need to respect that. And the idea is that you support, and, if you love this person, you should be supporting and backing them, even if there's adversity between your parents. And
great question and great answer. Thank you. Okay, there was another question in the middle. There's a hand there.
Hi, thank you. So my question sort of links to the first one, and it's for the opposition team. But you sort of said that you take the family tradition and change it based on your own values, and then that's yours, which is what my understanding of family tradition is, and cultural values is that over time it's always changed. And so the first question just sort of asked, to see it as something which is stagnant, but from what I've heard you say, it's something which changes because tradition comes from two people, they get married, and then they do their own thing, which depends on their family, and then they do it a couple years down, and then that changes again. So that's what I've heard your view is, but when it comes to you facing off with the 4 team, you sort of go, no, but tradition is a stagnant thing. So what's your view on tradition? I'm just a bit
Like, I just want the clarity there. Like, what do you think?
That's fair. So, I guess for me, and what I'm saying, your family tradition, what does your family do? What does your family decide to do? What is the tradition that they do, that they continue to do, the values they continue to uphold? At the point where you divert from that, and your family is you're now doing two different things. You're doing one thing, not two different things, but like, they're still continuing to do what they do. You're now moving on to your own thing. It's diverged slightly, right? What your family continues to do as a family will ultimately change over time and generations, of course. But where you've decided to make it your own, take it and diverge and split off, that's your own. And that's where you're choosing not to let it define who you choose to love.
And I think the against team have clarified the point quite well, when it's the cutting off point, right? So the moment that you as an individual today, in this moment in time, say that I'm going to do something that's opposed to what everyone else in my family is doing, that's the point that you're going against those family values and cultural traditions, to help clarify that point for the against team, as I'm understanding it. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's take one more question. Let's just take one question for the for team, and then we'll go into the closing statements. Anyone with a question for the for team? No questions for the for team. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do now is, please vote. Go on the polls. Vote quickly. It's your last chance to vote. You'll get another chance after the closing statements, but vote quickly. You've got 10 seconds to go into the polls and vote. Which side are you on right now? And in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we're going to have a look at the polls. Okay. Ooh. 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 Okay. There's some shift in there. Okay, 4 teams still in the lead. 4 teams still winning the heart right now. What we're going to do, we're going to give both teams the final chance to win over your hearts with their closing statements. They're going to get 2.5 minutes each to give their closing statements. So please give them your full attention before the interval. And we're going to kickstart this with the 4 teams' closing statement.
Okay. So throughout this debate, we've heard so many compelling stories about freedom, individuality, and of course, following your heart. And I don't think any of us will deny that love is not one of the most beautiful experiences one can have. But the motion before us is not just about whether love matters. It's about whether family values and cultural tradition should determine who we choose to love. Our answer has simply been, yes, they definitely should play a part. Not because tradition is always right, and not because families are perfect, and certainly not because people should be forced into relationships that they do not want, but because love is not just an emotion. Love is one of the biggest decisions we will ever make in our life. It is the person we choose, because the person that we choose is not simply the person we fall in love with. It is the person who shares our ordinary days. It is the person sitting beside us in the waiting room. It is the person holding our hand through grief. It is the person that shares our greatest joys. It is the person that will be care for our parents as they grow older. It is the person our children will one day look to and call mum and dad. It is the person who shapes the atmosphere of our homes. It is the person that we speak with about values, the traditions that we pass on, and ultimately the legacy we leave behind. Every choice comes with a sacrifice. But the question is, what are we willing to sacrifice, and whether we have considered that choice wisely? Freedom is not about the absence of guidance. Freedom is having the wisdom to choose well. Our family values and our culture are not chains that imprison us. They're the compass that guides us. Because when the rain comes, and eventually it won't be love or romance that keeps the house standing. It will be the foundation upon which it was built. Thank you.
Okay, and time. Okay, and now let's have the closing statement from the against team.
I want to talk from a personal experience. So, I don't know how much you guys know about Jehovah's Witnesses. So, my parents are Jehovah's Witnesses, very strict Jehovah's Witnesses. And that put me through a very difficult time in my life, in my teens. You know, when you're exploring things, you're understanding more about yourself and how you view the world. I decided not to continue going to meetings and being a Jehovah's Witness. Absolutely changed the relationship I have with my parents. And one of the big values that they have is that if you're going to be with someone, absolutely has to be a witness. And it kills me now to think that, you know, I've made a decision and my parents have chosen not to support me in the fact that I have a beautiful girlfriend. She's here in the audience supporting me. Probably a little bit embarrassed now. And that I'm happy and choosing not to share in that happiness because of who I am. And this is why I feel so strongly about, you know, the family values and traditions not determining who we choose to love. And that's the important word for me, because I think there is a common ground there where absolutely those family values, those cultural traditions, they make us who we are. They give us the guidance that we need to go through life. They're the foundations that we build who we are upon. But should it determine who we choose to love? Should we be closed off in who we choose to love because of our parents' past views, their past experiences? Absolutely not. The world progresses, it changes, it evolves, you know, and it's so important that we allow ourselves to change and evolve with it so that we can make the most of our experience in this life, because you only get one. So why limit it based on what I believe are the external factors of the people who may care about you and think they know what's best for you, but ultimately is a choice that is up to you, right?
Okay. And with that, we have our closing statements. Okay, so regardless of how you guys vote, remember there's a heart award, there's a mind award. So we're going to decide the winner of the heart award right now. So this is your last chance to vote. Who across the entire debate, not just one round, not just 1 point, do you side with as the audience? So go on to Slido, choose your side. You have 10 seconds before we announce the winner of the heart award. And the winner of the heart award for the first ever Hearts and Mind debate is Angie, on the what a turn of events. What a turn of events at the very last second. And with that, I want to announce that the winner of Hearts of Bigger Than Cultures first Hearts and Mind debate is the Against team. We've got the winners of our Heart Award, and now I'd like to announce the winner of the Mind Award. As I mentioned at the start, I'd be judging as we went through based on a few key metrics around how sound the arguments were, how often they went back to their main statements, and how strong that thread followed through the whole argument, which points were broken down more stronger, how they responded to audience questions. So I was deciding purely on logic versus which team swayed me. And the winner of the Mind Award is the 4 team. Hold on. And because I know there'll be questions asked about how that was decided and how it was awarded, there was a few main points. I think from the opening statement specifically, there was a lot of points in there that I think carried on throughout the entirety of the debate without needing much clarification. And I think the soundness of argument from start to finish is a key part in any good debate and winning debate specifically, and the fact that they were supporting each other's points on those main things, and the fact that the audience seemed to understand their viewpoint throughout the questions that were being asked. All those points led again through the ranking system for the 4 team being the winner of the Mind debate. So I want to thank you all for coming to the first Bigger Than Culture Hearts and Minds debate. That's the end of the main debate. Please wait, please wait, please wait. What we're going to do right now, we're going to do a 10-minute interval, 15-minute interval. There's more drinks on tap. Have a drink, more food. And then we're going to do a mini debate in about 15 minutes before we close out. So thank you.